Hi, everyone. This is Adrian from Key Street Ministries, and I'm so glad you've joined us today for Thursday's Thoughts. Now, last week we started a series from Psalm 103 about being blessed. God blesses us every day, and our way of blessing God, which is the Hebrew word barak, is to bow the knee, bow our hearts in submission, in surrender, in adoration, in reverence to God. He continues that thought with the rest of this passage, and we're just going to go a few verses further in Psalm 103. We're in verse 6 right now. The Lord works righteousness and justice for all the oppressed. I don't know if you realize that, but that's a blessing. It's a blessing that God is righteous, that God is always right and always in right standing. Now, why is that important? Because God is God and sovereign. He can do whatever he wants to. If God wanted to, he could attempt to do something evil. But because God has no evil in him and no evil nature, he does what is right. Now, sometimes we mix up right with fair. It's not necessarily that God is fair, because if it was really God being fair, here's what fair is. Fair is that we all deserve hell. Fair is that we all deserve God's wrath and God's anger. Because he's righteous and we're not. He's pure and we're not. But it's not just that God is fair, it's that God is right. He is just, which means because he is right, he does what's right. And in his mind and in his heart, what was right was to send his son Jesus to die for us, to pay the penalty we could not pay. And that he gives justice for all the oppressed. Listen, there may be some people on planet Earth that think they're getting away with it. They're not. God is always just. And when people are oppressed, the Lord sees that. He not only sees that, according to Revelation, he's got a book that he records this stuff on, so that on the day of judgment, he can show the accused exactly what they've done. Wow. And then here's the other part of that I think is so important, that he's righteous and justice for all. This is what Jesus said, and I think this is so amazing to me. Remember the verses before? He crowns us with love and compassion. Jesus said, when somebody does you wrong, pray for them. He says, when they've done you wrong, forgive them. You know why? Because your Father in heaven has forgiven you. And that makes everything right. It may be horrible as far as the situation is concerned, but in the eyes of God, when we forgive them, it is because he has forgiven us, and we are now acting like the righteous, just God. Now, let's go on to another verse. Verse 7, he made known his ways to Moses, his deeds to the people of Israel. That's a blessing. I'm going to say, Adrian, how is that a blessing? Here's how it's a blessing. To the people, he showed his deeds, which means he showed his actions. And he showed that in the wilderness he was kind. He showed in the wilderness he was God. He showed in the wilderness mercy. He did show in the wilderness justice and righteousness. But all those things he showed. Think about if God never showed those things to us. If we never knew it was him doing it. He could do that. He could keep that hidden from us. But he discloses, he openly shows those things to us so that we can know his actions. But the blessing with Moses is that Moses knew God's ways, his ways. So Moses had a personal relationship with God, with Jesus, so that he could know not only God's actions, but why God acted that way. That's a blessing. It's a blessing not just to see that God does stuff, but why he does it. And he does it for his glory and for the benefit of his people. So be blessed today. Be blessed because God is righteous, God is just, God is merciful. And if you'll develop that relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ, he will show you his personal ways. Have a blessed week this week.